This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm joined by trainer Tony Sims over Zoom. Tony, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Andy. You?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm all good. It's good to catch up. Obviously, some busy times ahead for yourself now. Everybody seems to get fight dates. Everybody getting ready for the weeks ahead. Let's get straight into it. Joe Cordina makes a long-awaited return next week. How frustrating a period has this been for Joe?
Well, as you know, he's had an hand operation. He had that in the of July last year. Dr. Mike Hayton repaired his hand. He had a metcarpal operation where they take some bone out of your hip and fused his right hand together. He's had trouble with it for his last couple of fights, so it needed to be done. So lockdown was probably, the best time for him to get it operated on. And he's come through the operation and he's punching well with it now, so he's firing on all cylinders now. So he's been waiting to get out, and his date's finally here, and he's boxing next Saturday.
Joe's been very, very highly spoken of from the moment he turned to the professional game, Tony. With that in mind, has he felt frustrated over this past year that he hasn't been able to get out?
Yeah, of course, it's frustrating for him. It's frustrating for everybody. I've got Martin Ward in the gym that hasn't boxed for over a year, and he's not had an hand operation. There's a few fighters that ain't boxed for a long time, so it's frustrating times for everybody with COVID. But with Joe's been waiting for his hand to heal up, and anyway, and apart from the COVID, so he's had different reasons why he hasn't boxed, but they're all frustrating times at the minute. COVID's frustrating. Everything you do around COVID, like going into the bubble's frustrating. Everything to do with it is all frustrating. So you just got to sort of get through that and move on, and get your dates, get ready for them. Box your fight. Win your fight.
Tony, how do you and the team kind of find going into the bubbles? Because particularly in your case, I could be wrong, but I don't imagine you sitting there playing on the PlayStation.
It's just like an unnecessary but necessary procedure. The unnecessary about it is, like, in normal times you would never do this. You know what I mean? Like, do a 24-hour time in your room. Walk around inside a hotel all with masks on. Only be allowed on one floor. Choose the training times that you're allowed to use the ring in the hotel, or you're allowed to use the running machine in the hotel. But obviously it's necessary because, we're in COVID times and everyone's got to be careful. No one wants to catch COVID. No one wants to die of COVID. So everyone's got to be careful. And, we're in a time where we have to do these things, and we don't want to do them, but it's necessary to do them, and for the health of everybody around. And hopefully with the vaccine, the way the vaccine's going in this country now, that we can get through this, and by summertime we can start seeing a bit of a normal procedure coming to boxing, i.e. without the bubble, i.e. with the crowds coming back into boxing. So hopefully by the summer we can see a bit of a change.
What's it like being in the bubble with so many different coaches and obviously trainers being in there? What's it like from that perspective? Do you sit down, do you talk about just normal boxing with them, or do you tend to just kind of stick with your team? What's that aspect like?
Well, normally, the A side of it, matchroom fighters, you normally know most of the trainers anyway, because you obviously see them on the circuit. But then you've got the away fighters, and some of them are foreign, who obviously, you don't know. So to be honest, all the bubbles I've been in, I've not really come into much of a conversation with any away team, really, especially if they're from a different country. They keep themselves to themselves, and you keep yourself to yourself. But like as you say, most of the time, really, you're with your own team. You know, your fighter, and you know whoever else is in there, trainers or cartmen, whoever else is in there, it's mostly sitting with your own team. But you know, most of the other trainers, I say, you know, from the circuit, so you do chat to them.
And just to kind of link back to Joe this coming, next coming weekend rather. Corbinov, his opponent, talk to me about him. What do you know about him? What do you expect from him?
Yeah, he's been a decent amateur. He's still got that amateur sort of style, you know, back foot sort of style and upright. You know, he's a decent opponent. He's only lost 2 fights for European title against Sam Andi, who's a good fighter. He's lost them both on points. So, you know, he's durable. He's never been stopped or put on the floor. So, you know, I think it'd be a good 10 rounds for Joe. He needs the rounds under his belt before he starts moving up into, you know, bigger and better opponents. And I think the rounds, if it does go 10 rounds, I think it'll do him the world of good.
I mean, you just mentioned it would do him the world of good if it did go the distance, but also how beneficial will it be to face somebody like Corbinov, who you mentioned has an amateur style still, despite what he's done in program, for Joe to have been out of the ring for so long, coming back, given his decorated amateur career, to come back into a fight against somebody who does still have an amateur style, does that benefit him more so just to ease back into things?
It don't really matter what style the fighter's got. You know, it's a good they are, really. Do you know what I mean? And you can bring amateur styles into boxing and be successful, but you know, from what I've seen of him, and there ain't a great deal of him on YouTube. He looks very amateurish still. You know, he looks like he's been a decent amateur. He's got, you know, good feet in and out. He doesn't really use a lot of head movement. It's normally gloves for defence. So, you know, he looks decent. He's a decent opponent. He's had 19 fights and lost 2 on points. So, at a high level of European title. So, he's a decent fighter. You know, he's not just an easy opponent for Joe to come back on. As I say, he's very durable. And if he's going 12 rounds with Sami Azani, who's a real handful, you know that he can take a shot, you know, and, you know, he's going to give Joe a good workout.
Tony, just moving forwards, and a week after that, you've got a little trip to Gibraltar. Talk to me about kind of this little trip ahead, and how does it change your preparations with Ted?
Well, to be honest, he was ready for last Saturday to fight on the 6th. So, you know, he'd been training since January. First week in January, we started at camp. So he was ready to go. So, to be honest, it's been a bit of a nose, really, because I've had to rest him up and then bring him back in again. You know, he's ready, all ready to go. So it's not been the greatest of things, you know, but you just got to get on with it. As I say, COVID causes a lot of problems, unnecessary problems in normal times. And, you know, Matchroom have had to move the whole show to Gibraltar, which must have been very difficult for them. And I suppose it's difficult for all the others on the undercard because they're all in the same boat. I suppose they've all had to do the same thing, pull the boxer back off and then let him go back into full training again. So, and then you've got to organise sparring partners to come back in again and, you know, organising a whole training program. So, you know, yeah, it's not easy to restart up again, you know, like 3 or 4 weeks later after the original date.
Talk to me about the Metcalf fight, Tony. As time's gone on, what have you kind of studied on JJ, and how are you expecting it to play out?
I think JJ Metcalf's a very good fighter. You know, he's like 21-0, and you know, we all know his dad Shane Neary, who was a great fighter in the day. And you know, I know Shay from back in the day personally. You know, he's a lovely fella, and you know, his son's like a carbon copy of him, really, when I'm looking at him. And I think it's just going to be a really exciting fight. You know, JJ likes to come to fight and he gives it everything, and so does Ted Cheeseman. So, you know, I'm expecting, you know, a very difficult fight. I've said before, it's gonna, it's probably gonna be one of them fights where sooner or later they're gonna end up standing toe to toe and slugging it out, because most of Ted fights end up like that. And he likes to get inside the opponent and start letting his hands go, and that's the way he fights, and you're not going to change him. So I'm expecting a very hard fight, and may the best man come through at the end of it.
Then we fast forward once again to the Conor Ben Samuel Vargas fight. Talk to me about Conor's preparations.
Yeah, Conor's preparations have been going well, and he trains very hard, Conor, and everything, he likes everything in detail. We've started his sparring, and it's all going well with sparring, and I think he's looking really good. In the last fight against Formello, he gained that little bit of experience to get against a more of an upper class opponent that he's been fighting. And I think this fight here against Vargas, I think, it's another step up of level for him, because Vargas has only been beat by the very elite fighters in the world. And, he's a tough guy. We see him against Amir Khan a couple of years ago. He's a tough guy, tough opponent, very experienced, knows what he's doing on the inside, and it's going to be a good learning fight for Conor. It's going to be one of them fights where he will learn a lot in this fight.
We saw him produce that fantastic performance against Formello. Look, we've just gone over there, Tony. Coming into this Vargas fight, is there a pressure on him to continue to excel, continue to show what he's been learning in the gym, and to ultimately look to produce a more emphatic win than some of the past opponents of Sammy Vargas, like you've just mentioned?
There's always pressure on him to, because obviously when you're looking at his dad, Nigel Benn, everyone compares you to your dad. As I was just saying to JJ Metcalf, he's a carbon copy of Shane Neary, but obviously they're still individual people, and they're although they've got half their dad in them, they're individual fighters, and then they're not their dad. So with Conor, he's learning all the time on the job. And I think each fight that goes along, I think you see that bit of improvement in him. He works hard, he takes everything in, and I think you'll see that little bit of improvement. You see that bit of improvement against Formello, and I think you'll see more of an improvement against Vargas. Whether he, gets Vargas out there inside the distance or not, I don't know, because Vargas is a tough guy, but he's certainly going to give Conor a good few hard rounds. And, I think Conor's smart enough to he's a good thinker when he's in there, when he's boxing in there. And, it's going to be a great experience fight for him.
When Connor first came to you, Tony, when you first started training him, and now you look at the development of his career since and where he is at now, do you look at it and does he surprise you by just by where he's reached with his career, or has he achieved more than what you expected? Has he achieved less, or is he where you expected him to be? How would you assess his career so far for somebody with such little amateur background?
I think he's just took it one step at a time. Like, that's what I always say to him: take it one fight at a time. As long as you're showing improvement in every fight, and then that with that improvement you can go further and further in your career. If we look back like 5 years ago when he started as a novice, he was 19 years old, so he was raw. Never had, as you say, never had a lot of amateur fights, so he was a raw fighter. But if you're willing to learn and you're willing to train hard and you're willing to give it everything you've got, and you're learning to improve all the time, which he's doing. So he's succeeding and excelling at a sport and a job that he's compelled to get better in. And I'm not surprised by it, because I see how hard he works. I'm not surprised by it at all. And I won't be surprised if he makes it to the top either, because the way he's doing things, as I said earlier, he does everything correctly. You know, his diet, he does correctly. His S&C training with his trainer, Dan Lawrence, he does everything correctly. All his boxing training, his running, everything's done right to the T. So, you know, there's no stones left unturned with Conor Benn. And, you know, if he keeps learning and improving, there's nothing to say that he won't reach the top in this sport.
Now, there's two fights at welterweight I just want to get your thoughts on before touching on a couple of the other guys in the gym. Firstly, we saw David Avenissian stop Josh Kelly a few weeks ago. Just assess that fight for me, Tony. What did you make of it? And does that ultimately put pay to a potential clash between Josh and Conor?
You know, Josh Kelly's, you know, a very good fighter. You know, his ability is like second to none. You know, you watch him sometimes and he does things that, you know, are very difficult to teach. You know, I knew him from the amateurs when he went Olympics from the GB squad. You know, and he's a very, very talented fighter. I don't believe he's at the right weight of welterweight. I've never believed that he was a welterweight. He seems to me that he's, you know, he could move up 2 weights, I think, even to middleweight. But, you know, I don't know, you know, that for sure what goes on behind closed doors with his diet, or whether he, you know, you hear rumours what he does with losing weight, but you don't know whether that's true or not. But, you know, if it is true, maybe he should have moved up a long time ago, because, you know, that defeat that he suffered was a big defeat, because, you know, you had a lot of viewers watching it. As you say, we was lining up to fight him in maybe December time in the massive domestic fight, which is obviously gone up in the air now. So I don't really know what his future is going to be. But by looking at him and the rumours that I hear, he should be moving up a weight. So, as you say, it probably has put paid to the Conor Benn domestic fight.
And then another fight to touch on is Florian Marku. He stopped Ryland Charlton on that same card. Continues to call out Conor. I know Conor is currently looking at other opponents and bigger and better things. No disrespect to Florian, but is that a fight you could see happening in the future?
You never know what's going to happen in the future. You know, he's not on our radar anytime soon. You know, he needs to build his own career. You know, you know, he needs to build himself up. So no, he's not on our radar. We're looking at like much bigger things than him. But listen, he's a decent fighter, and you know, I wish him all the best on what he's doing. But no, he's not on the radar at the moment.
And then just want to touch on Felix Cash as well. Now we all know, with regards to Denzel Bentley fight, those purse bids were won by Frank Warren. Can you just clarify for us, will that fight 100% go ahead, Tony? Because I see contrasting kind of stories that the Felix may still look for a European title fight. He's looking to face Denzel for the British. Do you kind of have a set in stone idea of what's happening?
Well, the date's set for the 24th of April. Frank Warren put it out there publicly. So the date's set for the 24th, and Felix is definitely fighting Denzel, yeah. I mean, the rumours that he was going to fight for the European was because Eddie offered Felix the choice. He said, "Do you want to fight for the European? I can do it for you with the Italian Signani, or do you want to fight for the British title?" And it was Felix's choice, really. And Felix wanted to fight for the British title. He wanted to win the Lonsdale belt before he went for a European title. So, you know, obviously we wanted Eddie Hearn to win the purse bids, but that never happened. So Felix still wanted to go ahead with a fight, you know, and he's confident of winning that belt.
What do you make of Denzel Bentley as a fighter, and what again do you expect in that fight?
Denzel's a good fighter, you know, he's a slick fighter, and, you know, he's not British champion for nothing. And, you know, he's a decent kid, he's unbeaten. And, you know, it's going to be a good fight. And it's a domestic fight with 2 unbeaten fighters, Felix Commonwealth champion and Denzel British champion. So they're putting both the belts on the line. So, you know, it's going to be a good fight. And Felix is very confident of being victorious. So, yeah, look forward to that.
John Ryder, any update on the Morel fight?
The last I spoke to Eddie, which was last week, he's in negotiations with PBC. they're trying to come to terms before it goes to purse bid. So he seems to think that the terms will be done before it goes to purse bid. So he was talking about it's going to happen over in the USA. So just waiting to hear on that, really.
I mean, just want to get your thoughts on a couple of other fights, Tony, before I let you leave. Canelo-Saunders has been announced for May. Your thoughts? How does it play out? Is Billy Joe the man who stylistically can overcome Canelo?
Billy Joe's a very, very good fighter, very talented. You know, obviously I was against him when John Ryder fought him many years ago, and you know, he's a very talented fighter, and you know, his record speaks for itself. Like, he's 30-0, and you know, it's going to be a good fight. And you know, I want to see Billy Joe win, but when you're looking at Canelo, he seems like he's in a league of his own. You know, and you know, he's without doubt the pound for pound best fighter of had, you know, of the day sort of thing, and of the year or whatever. And you know, he's just so exciting to watch when you watch him. You know, you like your fighters to watch him and learn, you know, the stuff that he does. He's just brilliant fighter, and love watching him. And I'm really looking forward to the fight. As I say, you know, you're always going to try and back your Brit and get behind him, but I just think Canelo's like an unstoppable force at the minute. I think he's in the prime of his career, and you know, he's just a great man to watch.
And then another fight I just want to get your thoughts on. Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez down at 140. Undisputed bout again. Tony, what do you expect from it?
Oh, both very, very good fighters. You know, I obviously know Josh Taylor from the amateur days, and he's a great amateur on a GB squad. And I think he's really excelled in the pro game. You know, I think he's stepped up to the plate time and time again. And, you know, I think he's looked unbelievable. He's really, really excelled as a professional fighter. And Ramirez is another good fighter. I remember seeing him out sparring when we was in a wild card gym a couple of years ago, just before he won the world title. And, you know, that's going to be a great fight. I believe Josh is going to beat him. I think Josh will be, you know, too smart for him, too fast for him. And I just think Josh is going to become undisputed champion.
And then the final one, I just want to get your thoughts on Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora. A lot of talk about it. Up at heavyweight, an interesting one, Tony.
Yeah, he's in, you know, outside of the heavyweight championship with Fury and Joshua, you know, as you say, it's an interesting fight. They've sort of both fought, you know, a few opponents the same, both fought Dillian White and had good fights with them. So, you know, you're going to see an entertaining fight. I don't know, it's a pick 'em, that fight. It's a 50-50 fight who's going to come out victorious in that. But, you know, it's an interesting fight, and I'm sure the winner will put them up the ladder a little bit more, closer to getting a world title fight.
All right, Tony, we'll leave that there now. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
No problem, Andy. Speak to you soon, mate.